This conference will now be recorded.
So. Okay. With so many people, again, we will start exactly at 10:03. But we had 5 people sign on in the last 30 seconds. Okay.
All right.
Okay. Well, I will begin the meeting by doing a few preparatory announcements before we start the actual meeting and the roll call. Just a reminder to everybody, because none of you have ever done a Zoom or GoToMeeting or anything, but please remember to keep yourselves muted when you are not actually speaking to everyone in the room. Just a reminder, please wear your masks except when you're actually drinking coffee or water or anything else. And if anybody has any problems, what number should they dial to reach us?
954.
If you have any technical issues, please dial
954.
954
924.
924
3653.
3653. All right, I'd like to call the meeting to order. And can someone please do a roll call?
No problem. Okay. Excuse me if I do pronounce anyone's name incorrectly. I do apologize in the beginning. I'm going to go ahead with Alonzo Maria.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I would say first name, last name.
Yeah, first name.
Okay. Gretchen Biesing. Miss Gretchen Biesing.
Okay, you have to have Steve Abrams, who I saw on here.
Yes.
Hi, Steve.
Hey, good morning.
Thank you, Mr. Abrams. Good morning. Then Joseph Corradino.
Can I ask you to also read their titles, please?
Yes, of course. So he's president.
Abrams is the executive director of the South Florida Regional Transit Authority. Maria Alonso is president and CEO of United Way of Miami. Joe Corradino, is he here?
He has not said that he was president.
Okay, he's president of the Miami-Dade League of Cities. Please continue. It's Nelson Fernandez. His first name is missing on my list.
Oh, that's strange. Oh, that's strange.
It says Fernandez.
Okay. Mr. Nelson Fernandez, the executive vice president of A&F Group, Inc. Mayor Geller, he did respond and say that he was going to be a few minutes late this morning.
Okay.
Mr. Michael Finney, president and CEO of the Beacon Council. Mr. Michael Finney. Ms. Lynn Goldman, community relations coordinator for Broward Technical Colleges.
Good morning. Well, thank you for having me.
Morning. Thank you for being here.
I believe you missed me, Carrie Goldberg.
Hi, Councilmember Goldberg. He's not on the.
Okay.
Yes. Go ahead, Mayor.
Carrie, you're absolutely welcome to be here. We're glad you are. You're not actually on the CEDS strategy committee.
Oh, and then I'll just be quiet.
But it's a public meeting and you're one of our officers of the SFRPC. Glad you're here.
In a meeting with publicly noticed,
Right.
allowed for all
Right.
council members.
Okay. Well, the meeting was noticed, so any of our council members can attend.
That's legally correct, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Continue with Oliver Gross.
Mr. Oliver Gross, president, New Urban Development. Mr. Oliver Gross. Dr. Jonathan Goodvera, president of the College of the Florida Keys.
That would be me.
Thank you. Mr. Gregory Hale, President of Broward College.
Present, good morning.
Morning. Mr. George Hanbury, President and CEO of Nova Southeastern University.
Good morning, and thanks for having me.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Hanbury.
Ms. Carol Hilton, President and CEO of Commercial Broward.
Good morning.
She's here.
I'm not sure if you were able to hear. Oh, I have some feedback. Okay, I'll have to fix that.
Thank you, Ms. Hilton. Mr. Alan Levon, Chairman and CEO of BBX Capital Corporation.
I'm here. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you for being here. Dr. Moran, the District Resiliency Officer for the South Florida Water Management District.
I saw her sign in. I see her up there.
I see her name. She's muted.
Hi,
I see her.
I am here. Sorry, hard to
Carol.
type. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm here. Thank you.
Mr. Pablo Ortiz, Vice President and Vice Provost, Biscayne Bay Campus, Florida International University.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Happy to be here.
Morning.
Thank you, Doctor.
Ms. Madeline Budmaguera.
Good morning. Happy to be here.
Thank you. Mr. Daniel Reynolds,
President.
President of Broward.
And his title.
That's what I was just getting. President of Broward County AFL/CIO.
Secretary of South Florida, AFL-CIO. Okay.
Mr. Matthew Rocco, President of South Florida Manufacturing Association. Ms. Juliette Rulak, Chair of the Broward Workshop and Director of External Affairs for Florida Power and Light.
Good morning. I'm here. Good to be.
Thank you. Mr. Daniel Samus, CEO of Greater Marathon Chamber of Commerce. Mr. Newton Sannon, President and CEO of OIC South Florida.
Good morning, everybody. Happy to be here. Thank you.
Good morning. Mr. Jared Smith, Chair of South Florida Hospital Association, Chairman and CEO of Broward Health Coral Springs. Mr. Bob Swindell, President and CEO of the Greater Fort Lauderdale Alliance.
Good morning. I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. TJ Villamil, International Trade and Business Development, Enterprise Florida.
Hi, yes, I'm here, everybody. Happy to be here.
Dr. John Wensby, Chief Innovation Officer, Nova Southeastern University, Executive Director, Alan Levon, NSU Broward Center of Innovation.
Good morning. I'm here. Thank you for having me.
Good morning. Thank you. Vice Mayor Beverly Williams.
Good
morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone.
All right.
And of course, the chair, Mayor Geller.
Right, and let me quickly run through, and if anybody else has signed on, Gretchen Biesing, Joseph Corradino, Nelson Fernandez, Michael Finney.
Michael Finney said yes.
Oh, Michael Finney said yes? Okay.
Ms. Biesing is also here. I see her present.
Gretchen Biesing is here.
Yes, I'm here.
So we're currently missing Joseph Corradino, Nelson Fernandez, who said he would be a few minutes late, Oliver Gross.
Oliver Gross is here.
Oliver Gross is here. Okay. I did not hear about either Matthew Rocco or Mark Rosenberg. Matt Rocco is here. Mark Rosenberg here.
Provost Ortiz is for.
Okay. Gotcha. Daniel Samis. Jared Smith. And that's it. Everyone else is here.
Mr. Chair, just for the record, I'm Sam Gorin on behalf of the Regional Planning Council and your behalf this morning as well, but thank you for having me as well. Thank you.
Lauren is the attorney for the South Florida Regional Planning Council as well as cities. I know Dr. Jennifer Corrado was on.
Writing you a text right now or an email says, "Hi, Tom, thank you. Will these prices be locked in until contract execution till the end of the year?"
Dr. Corrado, please mute yourself.
Just a second, please.
So I mean, really,
Dr. Corrado, please mute yourself. Thank you.
User, she's connected through the web, not the actual app.
Gotcha. Okay.
That I couldn't do it.
Okay. And Dr. Jennifer Corrado, who is the Chief Resilience Officer for Broward County. I'd like to thank, I'm sorry.
If you'd like, there's other people there that I can tell you who they are.
Okay. Who else is on?
So I'm pleased to see Manny Gonzalez from Miami-Dade County, who's ambassador, trade official.
You have to speak up or they can't hear you.
Yeah, okay, so I see Rick Miller, he's the head of South Florida Defense Alliance. I see John Rouge with the College of the Florida Keys. Thank you. Margie Smith from the Keys Small Business Development. We have multiple members of staff, including Bridget Houston, our resiliency officer. And we also have Ron Drew from the Greater Florida Alliance. We have, of course, Council Member Goldberg, who has joined us. We have Mayor Ziotti from the council also joining us today. And we have Dr. Donath from the Beacon Alliance. And I believe that's it, Senator.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to thank everybody for joining us today. Cameras there? Okay, I'd like to thank everybody for joining us today. We know that you all are very busy and that your time is limited and extremely valuable. My name is Steve Geller. I'm the mayor of Broward County. I'm a former Florida senator. I spent 20 years in the legislature, and I am the chairman-elect of the South Florida Regional Planning Council. You are among the top leaders in the region, and your insights, direction, and personal involvement in setting the regional agenda for South Florida is needed, not only in the area of economic development, but in the critical decision-making in all areas of South Florida's future. These include water and wastewater, affordable housing, job creation and training, resiliency and climate change, education and economic inclusion, and the creation of opportunity for all segments of our communities, and employment and labor. Today, I'm asking for your involvement in the creation of the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy, also known as CEDS, for South Florida, to develop a strategy to access current and future state and federal funding. But the agenda is larger than that. My hope is that you and other leaders will join us in the future. We'll shape not only the economic blueprint for South Florida for the next 5 years, but the strategic plan for addressing the many challenges facing South Florida as we look to change the trajectory of South Florida's future for the better. The role of the South Florida Regional Planning Council is expressed in its name. Until a few years ago, our top priority was addressing regional land use issues. However, our title is the South Florida Regional Planning Council, and we should be doing regional planning. I'm the incoming chair of the council, and I've been advocating for this expanded role. As the regional convening and planning authority, the council exists in part to facilitate regional consensus around our priorities. It is my hope that in partnership and collaboration with you, the key regional stakeholders, we can try to implement initiatives to deal with our priorities. We are planning, after this damn pandemic finally ends, to convene 2 regional conferences each year around these key issues. We had been planning that before the pandemic, but that went the way of all good intentions. We need your leadership and involvement. Although there are groups like CEPTEC, the Southeast Florida Transportation Council, dealing with regional issues, CEPTEC consists of 3 elected officials, 1 each from Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach. There are some business groups that meet occasionally to discuss some regional issues. But the South Florida RPC, working with you, will be the only group that brings the elected, business, and community leadership of South Florida together. Palm Beach County is part of the Treasure Coast RPC, but we frequently hold joint meetings with them, and we will invite them to participate in our regional conferences. Today, there is no comprehensive vision that integrates the knowledge, goals, initiatives, and ongoing efforts of the region's leaders. It is rare that a group of this importance has been convened to address all of these issues strategically. I'm inviting you to be part of a regional and highest level think tank that meets once or twice a year to prioritize these issues for South Florida as a region, to help us plan what our conferences should be about, and to seek your help and leadership in these conferences. However, the immediate task at hand is to develop a comprehensive economic development strategy, CEDS, for South Florida from 2022 through 2027 that will be updated and revised as needed. Now, Isabel, I have a big blank here. You're going to need to fill that in. The SFRPC is the
Economic Development.
Is the Economic Development District. I didn't know what that word title was. The SFRPC is the Economic Development District for the United States Department of Commerce's Economic Development Administration, or EDA. And the EDA requires an updated CEDS every 5 years. Compliance is critical for the following reasons. In order to access federal funding, specifically from the Department of Commerce and the EDA, we need to document the trends, needs, and strategic economic development initiatives of South Florida. The EDA has been providing increasingly significant annual funding to universities and local governments to address economic development, and has provided recent very significant funding for pandemic recovery. We are not eligible for EDA funding or for most Department of Commerce funding without completing the CEDS. In this CEDS, we will be laying the groundwork for critical investments, preparing for future pandemics should they arise, and positioning South Florida and its regional stakeholders to access federal funding in the future. The region will have a blueprint of ready-to-go proposals that can be pursued immediately when funding opportunities arise. Had we had a better blueprint, we would have been able to bring down more money from the federal stimulus acts that have passed in response to the pandemic. Although anecdotal from EDA, our understanding from the EDA is that the CEDS is strongly considered by other federal agencies when considering funding proposals and presence, and therefore enhances our opportunities to access federal funds every year. In this meeting, council staff will present an overview of the CEDS and the CEDS development process. They will present information regarding the role of the CEDS strategic leadership and work groups. While we are making every effort to reduce the number of meetings, it may be necessary to add additional work group meetings along the way, particularly in the areas of focus area and action plan and projects and funding sources to ensure that this important work is completed. In the presentation, you will hear more about those. Those have been scheduled for 2-hour meetings, 1 2-hour meeting. I'm not sure that 1 2-hour meeting will be sufficient to come up with what our priorities are in each of these work groups. And the second one is to come up with what our strategies will be to fulfill those. We will review regional trends, the focus areas identified by staff, and ask for your guidance regarding next steps forward. We will then ask for your involvement, given your interest and the assistance of your staff as we develop the CEDS. Together, South Florida's 3 counties, Monroe, Miami-Dade, and Broward, in conjunction with Palm Beach and the remaining 3 counties in the Treasure Coast RPC, represent 6.8 million residents, or approximately 1/3 of Florida's population, and as such is a significant constituency when it comes to federal funding. Given the unique resiliency needs of the region, the diversity of the population, and the special challenges of the region, we believe that a well-articulated economic development strategy will be compelling to our federal funding partners. The SFRPC and the Treasure Coast RPC have been working collaboratively to advance implementation of regional priorities for many years. We are committed to continuing this collaborative partnership to advance shared priorities in regional planning. Your personal involvement in this process and future engagements will ensure that South Florida can maximize its access and competitiveness when seeking EDA and other federal funding, that we can develop and implement the cohesive strategic strategy for South Florida's best future, that there is an integration of the activities of the region's key institutional, public, and private partners into a cohesive strategic plan, engendering regional support at both the state and federal level, as well as the local, for key regional strategies, and that the South Florida Regional Planning Council's efforts are directed into implementing the strategic vision developed by the stakeholder group. Thank you again for accepting this invitation to be part of this groundbreaking group. We look forward to working with you to advance shared regional priorities, to advance the well-being of South Florida, its economy, and its residents. Before I introduce our staff to further explain the CEDS, are there any comments by any of the committee members? If there's any comments by any of the committee members at this time, let me know. And if not, we'll go on and we'll give you a chance to comment again at the conclusion. All right, seeing no comments at this time, I would like to introduce Mark Cassidy, the SFRPC Economic Development and Research Manager, and Aralda Agoli, the SFRPC CARES Act Economic Disaster Recovery Coordinator. And did I hear someone just join us? Jeffrey Tart, I believe. No. Okay. Okay, Mr. Cassidy, you're up.
Thank you, Bud. Thank you very much, Chair Geller. It's an honor to be standing before such an esteemed group. I'm excited to be a part of taking the helm of updating our comprehensive economic development strategy for the region. I'm the Economic Development and Research Manager here at the Planning Council. And as I manage our economic development program, I'll be spearheading this effort along with Aralda Agoli, who will be spearheading our CARES Act Economic Disaster Recovery Strategic Plan. So today's objectives are, today's going to be a mostly informational meeting, giving you an explanation to understand the CEDS, how it works, how your role and relationships will work as a committee and the work groups. I'll also introduce the idea of the baseline data and summary background report, a component of the CEDS, and then we'll also discuss some next steps and our program of work, which our primary next step is going to be discussing our upcoming SWOT survey, which we will distribute following the meeting. So the CEDS is, a regional strategic planning effort guided by the council. As Chair Geller mentioned, we are the South Florida Economic Development District designated by EDA, which means that it's our responsibility to manage our update. I will explain what needs to be done in the document and as far as our meetings, and then explain our current existing CEDS that was adopted by EDA in 2017, some best practices, and what is unique to our CEDS this year, which is our CARES Act program led by Aralda. So as the EDD, we will be running our 5-year economic development roadmap update for the CEDS. Previously, as I mentioned, it was 2017, and next it will be 2022 through 2027, and will be updated, finalized in September of that year. The ideas will be led by you, the strategy committee, and the convening effort will be coordinated by the council. And what the CEDS does is it tells the past, present, and future the story of the regional economy. It establishes a regional network of goals and objectives so that, we can develop an action plan to achieve economic development in our region with a specific set of priority projects and funding sources, so that, as Chair Geller mentioned, when funding sources arise, we are ready to go, a coordinated effort, depending on the theme, depending on the need of the funding source, we'll be ready to go. And also, every application and proposal requires performance metrics to evaluate those applications for funding. So by integrating performance metrics, you have everything ready to go for a proposal as soon as that funding is released. So our currently adopted CEDS, the vision statement for that says what was adopted by our previous CEDS committee. At the bottom, I will read it out for you. To be the leading international community and commerce gateway, welcoming the world to Florida, the world's top performing economy. That we recognize as one of the world's best places to live, visit, learn, work, and conduct business.
By the way, I am hoping that our next one will be a little bit more unique, because if you had replaced the word Florida and the picture, that could have been the same statement for any area of the country.
Precisely. Thank you, Chair Geller. That's exactly right. And so within the framework, you have your vision, and then you have focus areas. Our previous CEDS focus area, one example was innovation and competitiveness, which is part of the Florida Chamber of Commerce's 6-pillar system, which will be moving away from and to a more region-focused, unique framework. One of the goals that was in the previous framework and action plan, I'll read that as well, as it's stated in the CEDS, enhance the resilience of South Florida economy in the face of natural disasters and changes to the national and state economies through increased awareness and preparation by businesses for environmental risks. It's a lot of words, a lot of ideas, and as Chair Geller mentioned, we have to focus it clear and concise with actionable and tangible goals and objectives. One strong example of something that does that is the East Central Florida Regional Planning Council CEDS. I actually had the opportunity to work on this current document as an intern in 2017. And the strongest part about this CEDS is that it outlines the priority projects and potential funding sources right in a matrix along with the framework. That way, when funding sources are available, they're ready to go, everything is organized. EDA's main recommendation in the next CEDS is to avoid the lengthiness, clear and concise. CEDS traditionally have been a long document with a lot of information, a lot of narrative and data. And while that is still a requirement and critical to telling the story, they want it to be priority project focused and keeping it clear so that you can go right to that framework and investment programs. And also, the priority is to make connections to the EDA investment priorities so that they are very competitive when you apply. Here are the EDA investment priorities, primarily top to bottom. This is generally what EDA is looking to focus on. These are, all of our typical, just what we're looking to accomplish. So as far as the actual required components of the CEDS document, which we will have a final hard copy document, a summary economic background, a framework, a SWOT analysis, analyzing the strengths, opportunities, weaknesses, and threats of the region, using that SWOT analysis to then determine that strategic direction and action plan. And this is where we will, hashing out that strategic action plan, goals, and framework. That's what we will be doing in the next couple of our meetings in December and March. As I mentioned, there will be that evaluation framework with the performance measures. Each project will have a specific metric or two, and so on and so forth, that will help evaluate how successful that program was. Economic resiliency is the big update to our current CEDS, what EDA is looking to have in it. EDA either wants a specific section or to integrate economic resiliency throughout, which is going to be a goal of our CEDS to integrate throughout. Although we are also going to have a specific element for our 2022 CARES Act recovery program, which Geraldo will be spearheading. And so with that, I will turn it over to Geraldo, our CARES Act Economic Disaster Recovery Coordinator, to explain her program.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you again for taking time off your busy schedules to attend our meeting today. As Mark said, I am Geraldo Goldie, and I'm the Program Manager for the CARES Act Economic Disaster Recovery Program. My role at the Council is to serve as a liaison between local, state, and federal partners assists with research and federal and state funding grants and other funding opportunities, and manage the CARES Act program. So in August of 2020, August of 2020, the council was awarded the CARES Act grant to help the region prepare for, prevent, and respond to existing and future impacts by extending its economic development COVID response activities. These activities include technical assistance, enhancing regional planning, collaboration, and intergovernmental coordination. Economic development organizations, the business community, and other key stakeholders. These activities and overall regional economic resilience plan will be included in the upcoming CEDS update that Mark started to speak about. Just to give you an idea about the grant roadmap, it was awarded until June of it goes up to June of 2022. Some of the activities that we have accomplished have been outreach program through educational webinars, development of available list of funding, survey, and COVID economic impact report. Moving forward in the upcoming quarters, staff will work with the committee to develop long-term economic resilience plan that supports economic diversification, job creation, capital investment, and workforce development opportunities. And we're hoping that you will help us identify these strategies that will serve as a roadmap to economic development representatives of the region for future pandemic-related events. Just as a couple of dates, we're aiming to have a draft report on March 2022, since the final is due to EBA by June of 2022. What are we asking you to help us with? The final product, the gist of it, is the Regional Economic Resiliency Plan. And how do we get there? The committee assesses local communities' conditions, recommends actionable strategies, identifies long-term objectives and strategies that will protect South Florida from future shocks and stresses. And the end product is the development of a regional economic resilience plan. And through this resiliency plan will be included in the CEDS update. In short, we need your expertise as our region's leaders to help us identify this regional economic resilience plan. And with that, I am done.
Good job.
All right, thank you.
Back to Mark.
Back to Mark.
Thank you, Geraldo. So the next section will be an opportunity for me to explain the roles and relationships and a little bit more understanding about how exactly this is going to work. So the process will be led by staff, primarily myself and Geraldo for the CARES Act program. The ideas will be presented from you, led by our guidance convening these meetings and working group meetings. In those meetings, we'll devise the vision, action plan, and implementation plan and identify those projects as mentioned. There will also be working groups, which we'll ask you to volunteer for specific ones according to your focus area and your area of expertise, or to designate a member of your staff to participate in these working group meetings in between the CEDS committee meetings. The work groups will be divided by focus areas, which here's a brief chart explaining the focus areas, which each work group will be divided according to in the blue boxes on the bottom of this chart. The work groups will be economic diversification, business attraction and workforce development, transit-oriented development, environmental and resilient infrastructure work group. These 4 work groups will tackle their specific issue and will also address economic disaster recovery and COVID-19 response in our first work group meeting. These work groups were taken as a smaller part of the larger big picture, which staff has, we're providing as a starting point, some ideas, some topics within each of the work group focus areas that you would be looking to address. This is not intended to be an exhaustive, a final list. It could even be less and more focused.
I'm not sure people can read those, so can you read them to them? You and I have these. Does everybody have that?
Yeah, you can read some of them.
Okay.
So here's an example of some of these guiding topics. In the economic diversification work group, which is the one on the left, the primary goal or objective would be boosting traditional and emerging markets and industries and creating an innovative economy. And some of these topics that we have started to list out: agriculture, aquaculture, arts and culture, construction and real estate, defense, freight and logistics, healthcare, hospitality, tourism, and life sciences, and so on and so forth, are primary, traditional, and emerging industries. This can operate as a template for goals, objectives, and other guiding ideas to craft the vision statement for the region. But we hope to discuss this with you, and any of your thoughts or any designations or focuses that you see as more, less important, etc. We encourage your feedback. So each of these work group meetings will meet in between the strategy committee meetings. Excuse me. So if we're meeting at the next strategy committee meeting in December, there will be, each work group will meet at least once in between. So right now in October and November, we should meet at a regular time, proposals such as first or third Thursday of the month. So each work group will meet at this specific time once. And what the work groups will do is discuss the activities that your organizations are currently engaging in, what you'd like to see, what would happen in a perfect world if there was unlimited funding, what type of projects would you go for, what connections do you have, what organizational connections are there to start crafting those goals and objectives as a beginning stepping stone to lay out all of our priority projects. And so each of the topics that the work groups will meet to discuss first would be the CARES Act program, what to do to establish economic resiliency now in response to COVID-19 and for future pandemics. And then in the next meetings, discussing focus areas and action plan, projects and funding sources, a meeting that could take longer than the proposed 2 hours at the time. It could take another meeting. We could meet once for 2 hours and say that we have more work to do and meet again. But this is our starting framework. And the last work group meeting would be to review and finalize all of our work in advance of finalizing our CEDS document. And so these are the meetings and topics of the CEDS strategy committee meetings as opposed to the work group meetings. We'll meet quarterly, December, March, June, and September. And the following milestones in December would be the SWOT analysis, performance measures, and the CARES Act. And I will explain what will happen in each of these meetings more in a moment as I go through it, but I'll just give you an understanding of what's in the CEDS as well. So the first section of every CEDS is the baseline data and summary background report. And what that section serves to do is to tell the state of the region, what the past, present, and future of economic development in our region is. We use typical data, demographic, economic, of course, population, income, or employment, but also bringing in additional supporting information, strong holistic indexes such as the Innovation Index, the ALICE Index, any local information that we might be able to procure, such as like a local skills gap survey, and also maps of our current and future infrastructure, which you can see on the right is one example of future projects that we would like to accomplish in our region. So the summary background is typically organized by the focus areas. It was traditionally the Florida 6-pillar system. In our upcoming CEDS, we'll organize it according to our focus areas. So with our proposed focus area framework, we would have economic disaster recovery and COVID-19 resiliency response, economic diversification, business attraction and workforce development, transit-oriented development, and environment and resilient infrastructure. And so each of these will have that baseline economic and demographic infrastructure, all that information according to each of those. To give you an idea of one section that you would see in the summary background report, I will present some of the information from our 2020 annual report and update to demonstrate some of what the summary background data for the COVID-19 element would look like. So what the 2020 CEDS annual report and update was essentially EDA requested all of the economic development districts to amend their CEDS, update their data, and address the new priorities from EDA, which at the time were resiliency, equity, and economic data, COVID-19, and opportunity zones. And so
we're about to give you a lot of economic data. Don't worry about copying any of it down. We will be sending all of you a copy of this data that you're about to receive.
Right, and essentially the idea of presenting this for our presentation today is not as a presentation wholly on this economic data, but more as understanding what it looks like in the context of the CEDS. But in our 2020 annual report and update, we brought in the most recent economic data from the census. It's showing GDP growth before COVID hit, unemployment, and improvements in the Alice Index and poverty regionally, but still lagging from the state and behind the nation as a whole. We showed the updated unemployment data, which was current at the time of our 2020 annual report and update, showing sky high unemployment and that slow recovery towards the end and middle of 2020. Showed that in our region, that economic damage was primarily driven by those large losses in leisure and hospitality industries. But it became a situation, especially in 2020, where the most recent economic data available, by the time it was released, it was getting a little bit dated. So we use our REMI, regional economic models, incorporated economic impact modeling software to predict and forecast what the economic impact would be in our region in 2020. And it showed, significant losses in employment, GDP, and disposable income across the board in our region. And that impact was felt stronger in our region than in other places around the country. And so we forecasted in 2020, and then we followed up with the same methodology in 2021 with an updated data set and with new economic models. And what we found was that the 2020 forecast was pretty close as far as what the expected impacts to employment and labor force were, except it was a little bit underestimating the impacts to Monroe, which saw stronger negative impacts to their economy than we could have predicted. And then we followed that up with the forecast for our economic impacts for 2021 by the end of the year, seeing what everybody hopes and is expecting, that there will be some economic recovery, but not a return back to normal pre-COVID levels. Yeah, and then the hope is to bring in the most recent data across the board. The 2020 census data will be released by the time we update our CEDS, which would be good. The best decennial census data available. We've also provided some recent unemployment data reports and some of our recent presentations, including the Florida Department of Economic Opportunities unemployment data, basically corroborating that forecasted story of an economic recovery, but one that we're now seeing with the most recent data, one that is starting to taper off and is lagging. So also integrated into the report in the summary background, and also as part of our framework for evaluating the performance of our programs, are these performance metrics. On screen are about a dozen examples of the very typical performance metrics. Most economic development districts in the region use these, and then some additional metrics, which we will be discussing and finalizing as a group together. Some examples of these performance metrics: high school graduation, unemployment, average wages, and so on and so forth. Here's just some of the updated information that we were also able to put into our 2020 annual report and update, showing our continually growing wages in the region. As I was mentioning, we're going to be discussing additional performance metrics. We will ask you to let us know in the SWOT any performance metrics that you agree with, would like to see added, and so on. We will compile all of that information on your responses in the CEDS or in the SWOT analysis, and we will discuss them in the next meeting and then vote and finalize them. And then there's new guidance from EDA and NATO as far as those types of performance metrics that we can all come up with. Some of the examples are like comparing to the state and regional scorecard. So it's core typical performance metrics. We're also coming up with regionally unique. And that is going to be the big picture. Most critical thing about bringing everybody here together is what information do we have locally that we can't get typically, but because we have this group together, we're able to come up with a good new unique data to analyze the performance of our sets. So the SWOT, one of the components of the sets, it's driven by the responses from you. What we will do following this meeting is send out a questionnaire to all of you. So we'll ask you to, discuss, list top 5 strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. That's typical, but we also really want to get at economic resiliency. What would your target priority be? What would you do in a perfect world? What's your number one? And then also we will present a list of some of those performance metrics and give you an opportunity to select the ones that you think are good, and then also propose new ones. We'll also ask about what work group you would like to join, or to name the representative that you'd like to have join as far as the work group meetings in between the set strategy committee meetings. And I'll give a couple seconds if anybody would like to propose or suggest anything to include in our SWOT analysis. What do we need feedback from all of our groups and from all of our members?
My suggestion is think about this now, and as soon as you're done with the presentation.
And our sound is me, right? Great. So to summarize our meeting and some of our next steps moving forward, the CEDS is our economic development blueprint to help us secure significant chunks of funding in our region. It creates a network of exchanging opportunities, expertise, and ideas through all of our top minds in the region. And as I mentioned, the next step is going to be that we're going to send out that survey. We'll ask you to respond as soon as possible, certainly before our December meeting. That way we can get our work groups established, we can schedule our meetings, and then we can start discussing the CARES Act in our first meeting and move forward. And the next meeting, we'll discuss the SWOT and the performance measures and also provide an update of the CARES Act. And once we establish who is in each work group, we will also schedule the meetings at that regular time. Once more, so what to expect at our next meeting will be a summary and presentation of the SWOT, of the performance measures that we mentioned in the SWOT survey questionnaire, and an update on the CARES Act program. And then what we will ask of you is to discuss the SWOT, we'll compile some key takeaways to use in our SWOT elements of the CEDS. We'll finalize those performance measures after Aralda gives us an update on her CARES Act program. We'll also introduce the evaluation framework and action plan, and then start discussing it, but the working meeting for that will be in March. Here's an overview of the main milestones for each of the committee meetings. Today, explaining the roles and relationships, understanding the components of the document, including the baseline data, summary, background report, the SWOT, and get organized and adopt a program of work. In the next meeting, I've already belabored the point of what to expect in the next meeting. And here are some of the main milestones and key takeaways for each of our meetings in future. And again, there will be a work group meeting, at least one for each of those focus areas in between each strategy committee. So with that, I know that was a lot of information to take in at once. So I think giving everybody the opportunity to ask any questions.
Yes, is that George Hanbury, I see?
Thank you, Senator and Mark. I really think that's a wonderful presentation. I'm really pleased that you asked me to be on this committee, but the only suggestion I have is it's a shame that Palm Beach County is in the Treasure Coast set. Each of the elements
for a long time, I've tried to seal them down here, but it's said in statute that they're in the Treasure Coast.
I understand. So for that reason, I'm pleased that each of the presidents and CEOs of the Economic Development Agency, like the Fort Lauderdale Alliance and the Beacon Council, both of those agencies are going through the same type of exercise of which we are participating. But I do think the question, if Mark and Aralda could send the questionnaires to not only the two CEOs, Bob and Michael Finney, but possibly to the members, because each of them are actively engaged in the region. And I would also encourage, if you could, if it's not statutorily prohibited, to send Kelly Smallwood and the Palm Beach Business Development Board a similar questionnaire. South Florida Regional Council is in a wonderful position to kind of consolidate all of these, because some of the major businesses that you're looking at attracting, both Palm Beach and Miami-Dade are considering financial services in these, as well as high tech and biotech, as well as marine industry and traditional manufacturing. So I would encourage you to send this questionnaire to try to consolidate almost 7 million people and not leave Palm Beach out. That's just a suggestion, and certainly education is a key role in all 4 counties and not just the 3.
Mr. President, your remarks are extremely well taken. And I'm looking this way because that's where I can see the screen, but I know I need to look that way. Mr. President, your remarks are extremely well taken. And as I said, the SFRPC, the South Florida Regional Planning Council, we have been meeting, I believe it's twice a year, a joint meeting of the South Florida and the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Councils, because we know that these are regional issues. And additionally, and Steve, I'll call on you next, Steve Abrams. Additionally, remember I said that I've asked all of you here for 2 reasons. Number 1 is for the CEDS itself, but number 2, because the South Florida Regional Planning Council is going to be doing regional planning. And I mentioned SEFTEC as one example, the South Florida Transportation Council. I think that's what it is. Problem is they're dealing with transportation. If you look, and it's only 3 members, 3 elected officials. If you look at this document that we showed earlier with all of these little bubbles, if you're dealing with transportation, it is important to deal with transportation. But transportation also deals with affordable housing. Transportation also deals with economic development. Transportation also deals with education. And that's why we want all of this to get together.
Right.
And we are planning on having, as I said, I'm assuming that this damn pandemic will finally end. And at which point we will go back to what we were already going to be doing before the pandemic, which is having 2 conferences a year where we want the input from the people on this phone call. And I can't see them over there. I can see them over here, which is why I keep looking that way. But we want your guidance and leadership in addition to the CEDS. But the CEDS is coming up with a lot of the regional priorities, the strengths and weaknesses. And we want to use that in our regional conferences, which we will invite Palm Beach to be part of, and the rest of the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council, which is Martin, St. Lucie, and Indian River counties, to also attend. But specifically, we need Palm Beach so that it's Monroe, Dade, Broward, Palm Beach at a minimum, so that we can have the regional discussions, understanding that if we do one on water, if we build resiliency in Broward and they don't have it in Boca or Aventura, we're still underwater here. If we have transit, but it stops at our county lines, we're in trouble. If we have affordable housing only in one county and not in the others, where are the other counties getting their workers from? So these are all regional issues, and that's the reason that we want your help, not just on the CEDS, but on helping us plan our conferences, and we want your participation in our conferences. Steve Abrams, I know you were next. And Juliet, I see your mic on. Did you want to speak also?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, I'll add you to the list. All right, so it's Abrams, Rulak, and that's all I see for now. Steve, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You gave my speech about transportation, but also sort of the representative of the Palm Beach County Alumni Association maybe on this project. I actually, when I served on the county commission, did try to switch Palm Beach County into the South Florida RPC. I came short by a couple of votes. We would have gone to the legislature, had them change that. But in any event, I know that Palm Beach County is very interested in the activities of Broward County, and as well South Florida Regional Transportation Authority actually does cover all three counties. But what came to mind was that some of us may recall participating in the 750 exercise, which did cover the entire region and had, as I am understanding, some similar features, as a regional economic development plan. So I guess my question probably to staff is, well, whatever happened to 750, I guess is my first question. But my other question is, how is there information or data? Can we use that exercise in part to inform this as well? And also that would cover.
Steve, when was the 750?
Pardon me?
When was the 750 program?
I think that would have been what Isabel probably could recall, 2015?
2010 to 2014.
If it was Isabel says it was 2010 to 2014. Honestly, 8 to 12 years ago, it may be useful to look at, but not that relevant anymore.
Seemed like yesterday. All right.
I could offer a comment if you like.
Isabel?
Yes, and thank you. Again, my name is Isabel Cosio Carballo, Executive Director of the Regional Planning Council. And so to Mr. Abrams' point, the work of 750 is not lost and is being used today in a variety of different planning activities. And I do think that one of the things that we need to do, and I hope to do next year, is to go back to the 750 and the Strategic Regional Policy Plan, update them both. And that will fit very nicely in with the CEDS. But there was significant work that was done under 750, and that work continues to influence policy decisions today. So, but thank you so much. And yes, that would be part of the strategy, Mr. Abrams.
And Mr. Abrams, did that answer all of your questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Roulette, you're recognized, ma'am.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I really am very excited about the work that we're about to take on, but it is very expansive. And I thought it might be helpful to give some context. There was reference made to a 2017 to 2022 plan that currently exists, a CEDS plan, and I thought it may be helpful for us to receive copies of that. I know it's probably very extensive, but also
it's not so long that we can't send it out. That's a very good idea. We will distribute it to all of the committee members. Thank you. Please continue.
Okay. Yes, particularly because there may be some carry forward items from that, and will give us, I think will just give us a more foundational basic context to move forward. So thank you.
Thank you. Did that answer all of your questions, ma'am?
It did. And I
Thank you.
apologize, but I'm going to have to jump off.
Everybody on this phone is very busy. We understand when you have to leave. Thank you for being here. I see no other microphones on, so is there any other comment? Any other comment? Don't see any additional comment. And Ms. Ruat just left, but you was just, Maria Alonso just commented about a link. Let me go back to my agenda. One other question in terms of meeting dates. It is my experience that Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday are the dates that every group meets. That Monday and Friday, when I try and schedule meetings, I typically have to go to Mondays or Fridays because those are the days that there are not normally meetings.
Okay.
So let me ask a question. My recommendation would be either Monday or Friday for meetings for this group. Again, we're talking about one per quarter for the actual committee and possibly one per quarter for the working groups, which, as a reminder, either you or your designee can be on those working groups. Please nod your head so I can see. Do Mondays and Fridays seem like the best days? Yes, no? I don't see anybody saying no.
Monday's good for me.
Okay, and definitely not fourth Fridays because of SRTA board. But either Mondays or Fridays, I see Mondays. Mondays seem to be the choice. So we'll try and schedule them for Monday at, we don't know which day or which time, but there'll be sometime on Mondays. I don't have anything else on the agenda. Isabel, do you? Okay. Today, we're done early because this is an introductory meeting. Before I adjourn this, is there any additional comment or feedback that we should go over? Is there any additional comment or feedback? I'm going to ask last time, any additional comment or feedback? Seeing no additional comment or feedback, I thank everybody for being here today.
I think
Yeah.
Mr. Newton has mic on.
Who? No, that's Sam.
Mr. Newton.
Sam Gorin? Oh, Newton. Newton, did you have
no.
comments that you said it?
No, simply, Mayor, saying exciting possibilities here. There's so much going on in silos. I think this regional approach to loop it all together is very exciting. So look forward to it.
Thank you, Mr. Cannon. Sam Gorin, your mic was on. Did you have any comments? No. All right. If there is nothing else to come in front of us today, I thank you for being here. We know how busy you all are, and we are now adjourned for the day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Everybody's leaving and they're saying goodbye with the transfer mic.
Good morning. I wanted to call you this morning, but I had this meeting coming up, so it was at 10. Yeah, so how you heard from homeboy?
He came back yet. I got the painter started this morning. I got the locksmith. I got the locksmith rekeying the locks, and I'm waiting on ADT. We've been up working since 7, so this morning I had to go get blinds